Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing our build of the Estes Pro Series version of the Nike Smoke. Now, it is time in the construction process to install my motor mount. I'm going to use epoxy to do this. The instructions don't call for that, they call for using wood glue. But honestly, this just feels like, I don't know. There are parts in the construction that call for epoxy. There are parts in the construction that call for CA glue. This seems like definitely a place where I would want to be using epoxy. So I'm not entirely sure why uh, this isn't part of the construction, like explicitly, but whatever. I'm going to use epoxy. You don't need to, I guess, but I would strongly recommend it. Anyway, so before I've done everything else, here's what I've done. I have test fit all the fins into the motor mount here, right? So each one of them, there's a notch on both the fin and in the motor mount, and I've test fit them all. 3 out of 4 of them were fine. Like this one right here, it's snug, but you know it goes on nicely. It's not a problem. So I'm going to take that off. It is a little snug. The other 3, there are 3 again that were good, and those are the fins that I built, well. So it's not a coincidence. It is a little sticky, but the last one is the fin that I didn't quite assemble quite right, and of course the practical consequence to that is it didn't fit very well. So I have marked an X right here on the outside of my my tube that's going to be sticking out the back of the rocket. This is going to get covered up, so it doesn't really matter for the time being. But I put an X here, and I know that this is the fin. This is the place where the fin goes. And I have spent some time sanding this, and sanding the notch, and sanding this part of the fin as well to ensure that it fits. So this is the fin that doesn't quite match. I have that separate so I don't confuse it. Honestly, I would test fit every single one of these and make sure that they are easy enough that you can get them on without a lot of trouble. And if they're not, sand the wood, maybe even sand the fins. So that's taken care of. The other thing that I've done is I have taken the tube and I have drawn a line, just eyeballed in the middle. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I've eyeballed a line in the middle and used the door jamb to extend it on 2 sides of this. 2 sides of it because I am going to use the launch lugs that this came with, which are, it's not actually a lug exactly. It's, well, you'll see it later, but I am going to use those, but I'm also going to use rail buttons. So I'm going to have this kind of like dual mode, so I can launch it on a 1/4-inch rod, or I can use a rail. I will probably use the rail, maybe exclusively, I don't know. But it would be nice to have both, and since this isn't actually a lug per se, I can live with that. So I've drawn the lines on. It'll be easier to do that before messing with this, like when there are fins on it, than after. Okay. So that's, everything's ready to go. The other thing that you should probably do here is test fit so that this slides in reasonably well. A little bit of, stickiness is fine. Eventually, so the end here is going to have to be flush, so you can just stand it up, drop it in like so. And then you should probably also test fit to make sure that this fits on the fin. The knot should be on the back, and you're going to have to rotate it as you go until you see that the gap, I'm going to pull this out again, so there we go. So this gap should line up with through the fin slot. If it doesn't, we're going to have to fix that. But anyway, it should go in like this, and then these should slide in reasonably well, and they do. So test fit. Do you want to test fit them all? Maybe you do. I actually already have, so good enough. All right, now all that's done, it is epoxy time. I'm not going to attach the fins right now. My goal is twofold. I am going to be reinforcing this in a few places. So here, I'm going to put some epoxy. I don't think I'm going to bother with this side. Maybe I will. We'll see. I don't feel super great about doing it here because I don't want the fins to get in it. Or I don't want there to be blobs so it doesn't sit right. And I'm going to do here, but not on the outside because I'm worried about this fitting properly. And there is some space there, so I could Maybe I will, I don't know, but at the very least I'm going to do the interior on the front and the interior on the back with epoxy. Then I'm going to be applying the epoxy into the tube. So I'm going to put it, the instructions call for 3 separate places. They call for putting it at 1/2 inch, 3 inches, and 7 inches. So here's 7 inches. All right, so 7 inches is past, the slits. 1/2 inch is just interior, right? And 3 inches, 1, 2, 3 is basically where this is going to go. So it's kind of in the middle. I'm not truly going to measure those things because that would be a royal pain. I am going to guesstimate on the inside. This easy one, I'm going to guess, about here. And then my dowel my stick that I use I measured it. It's about 8 inches. So I'm going to kind of eyeball, keep like an inch out, and then paint it like so. As always, when dealing with epoxy, I'm going to put on a glove. I'm going to put this on my non-stick hand, although probably wouldn't hurt to put one on my stick hand as well, since I do have to reach fairly far into the tube. It's possible I could, but I'm going to work my way back in so that hopefully will come up. Time to make the epoxy. Epoxy, if you haven't used it before, is a binary. It's 2 things. Ideally, you should use the exact same amounts of each of these things. I'm going to eyeball it because, just because it's a big pain to not do it that way. So let's squeeze some in here. I do need a decent amount. This stuff stinks a lot, so that's why I'm using a disposable cup. As soon as I am done with this, it is going to go straight out to the garbage can. I am in a well-ventilated room. If I did not have a well-ventilated room, I would consider doing this outside. Alright, this is 5-minute epoxy, which means that it will turn into a brick, a ball of plastic that is rock hard in about 5 minutes as soon as I start mixing these things together. So I am going to go quickly, and hopefully I made enough. Alright, so let's start with this thing. I am just going to kind of brush it in here, and yeah, a lot of it is not going to get quite into the groove exactly where I wanted. If you really wanted, and you're wearing a glove, you could kind of smooth it in as if you were making a fillet, but I'm not going to bother with that because I am confident that I can get enough into the seam here to make it worthwhile, and then I can just kind of smooth it out like so. I think I will put a fillet on this side as well. There isn't any glue here at all. I didn't glue, well, I did put some glue underneath the green ring, and it's smushed forward, so there is trace quantity. There is a trace quantity of a fillet here, but not really very much of it. Remember too that I did not put the engine block into this. That was optional, and since I've decided there is a chance that I might use a particularly large composite motor, I decided against putting an engine block in, but this is kind of your last chance on that. So if you wanted to do that, you probably should do it before you get to this point. This is, again, it's a good thing I'm wearing a glove because I just touched the epoxy without really thinking about it. The reason we don't want to touch the epoxy is, first of all, it's gross, but more importantly, it is entirely possible that you could have an allergy to this stuff without even knowing it, and you don't want to find that out the hard way. Alright, I think I'm going to epoxy on the outward facing part too. This has been, I'm just going to go light. This is what I was concerned that I would get in the way of the motor retention system. I'm not too concerned about that now that I'm actually doing it. So I will apply it, because why not? I'd like this to be strong. Okay, and I can kind of smooth it out as necessary. All right, good enough. That takes care of this. Let's just be careful not to touch any of the epoxy parts. I might need a bit more epoxy looking at this. Hard to tell. Maybe not. All right, so now I'm going to start going on the inside of this. Again, 7 inches is most of my stick. And I'm just going to be looking down the barrel and smoothing, just brushing, kind of painting it on as I go. If you come up a little short, like you don't get the whole 7 inches in, that is not a problem because you'll end up pushing the epoxy along with the motor mount. Okay, first ring done. Yeah, this should be just about perfect, one would think. The next string is going to be kind of midway through, and I'm going to try not to, leave any goop in the slots. Let's move this out a little bit. So I might actually have to kind of clean that up because I know I got some that stuck there, squirted out a little bit. This would be a place where you could accidentally come in contact with it as well. Okay, I don't see any. Yeah, that got close, but it didn't actually get out, so that's fine. And then the last bit here, about 1/2 inch inside. And I'm going to use up the rest of mine, so I'm going to go kind of thick on this, thicker than I did with the other two. And again, that's not really a problem because it's going to get squished along, so it's going to come in contact with, there we go, with the lead edge of this, the one that's going all the way in first, and it might end up pushing that along. All right, everything is set. Let's get that out of the way. Now I do need to be careful, of course, that I have this going in the right direction. The green point part is going up toward the nose cone, and I do need to get the notches aligned with the slots. So I'm going to try to do that on the way in. I'm probably going to need to adjust it. There we go. Push, push, push. Okay, I can see right now that they're not particularly aligned. That's fine. I'm actually going to use this pencil here to adjust that, because I don't want to touch. Now I'm just going to use the ground to squish it up to have ends even. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do one quick check to make sure that my notches line up. So I'm going to use this fin. Fits the whole way down. I am confident that that's going to work. So that's it. Epoxy complete. Less than 5 minutes. That's going straight outside into the trash can. So is my glove. Notice I flipped it inside out so I don't have to touch it. Epoxies are closed. This is going to go outside too, well, they're like in my garage overnight. All right, so that's it. That is the epoxy, at least phase 1 of epoxy. I'm going to epoxy the fins on too, but that's not going to happen today. All right, thanks for watching. I will see you next time.